A bit of leave since it's school holidays from work. I think this is something that affects all of us. We're talking about how toxic leaders are impacting South Africa's workforce. Joining me this morning on Zoom is Professor Renata Skuman, Head of Healthcare Leadership at Stellenbosch Business School. Professor Skuman, good morning and great having you with us again. Good morning.
Good morning, listeners.
As I was reading through this, Renata, this information that prompted this conversation this morning, it's talking about a growing body of evidence highlighting a concerning trend, an elevated prevalence of narcissistic and psychopathic traits among top leaders. I've got to jump in here and ask you, when it comes to narcissistic conversations around that and psychopathic traits, I mean, it takes us to, I think, way out of our ability to understand, and we maybe draw in on what we think those things mean. Can you help us to understand what is a narcissist and what is a psychopath?
Yeah, I think it's very important that we have this discussion because people tend to use the terms very loosely.
Yeah.
And we're not referring to narcissistic bosses or difficult bosses, and we're not referring to relationship problems you have with someone you don't get along with. When we talk about narcissism and psychopath, there's really clear diagnostic qualities or traits that we are talking about. So, for example, in narcissism, there's grandiosity, entitlement, a constant need for admiration, a lack of empathy, arrogance, and hypersensitivity. With psychopaths, we talk about superficial charm, manipulative behaviors, especially a lack of remorse and empathy and impulsivity. And both can become quite cruel, and bullies and harassment in the workplace will qualify under these descriptions. But we have to see that people can have these traits without fulfilling the criteria. And then we talk about the strengths of the personality traits. When we talk about the toxic or the dark part of it, is when it's used or utilized to the detriment of others or to the detriment of the organization merely to progress their own agenda.
Yeah, and we're talking here about top leaders with these traits. So there's obviously something there that's quite positive, because these men and women are somehow being driven to the top of the pile with these personality traits. So, I mean, are these some of the things that they're displaying is what we're looking for in leaders? But then, of course, there's the dark side.
Absolutely. I mean, some of the traits can be really advantageous for leaders and fit many conventional ideas of how leaders should behave, especially in high-stake environments. For example, the charm, fearless risk takers, charisma, strategist, courage, and even audacity to push forward the visions. They can have very compelling visions, and that can lead them to inspire and to attract followers. The problem is the indirect negative strategies then, the deceit, the withholding of information, the direct manipulation and bullying, and also white-collar type of crime.
Renata, what about the workforce, those working underneath these managers and bosses? I mean, you have to endure the dark side every single day. How damaging can that be to the mental well-being over time of employees?
Yeah, definitely it creates a culture of fear, of mistrust, of reduced psychological safety, diminished employee engagement, diminished productivity. And it really can create low morale, high attrition rates and staff turnover, and even reputational damage to a company and eventual decline. So we see a great part of the workforce that's struggling with stress already and mental well-being problems already. And this is a further risk and contributing factor to the lack of mental wellness amongst people.
How do we deal with this? Do we just ignore it just to keep the peace, and then we just go on because, I need to do well in my job. This is my job. I don't want to jeopardize my work in any way. So do I just need to kind of grin it and bear it? Is that really the way to go about it?
There's a few ways that you can look at the situation. Firstly, if you are resilient enough and strong enough and have a good support network, whether it's informal support or formal support through professionals, you can have an attitude of let other people own their own pathology, and you can decide, what, to engage is not worth my emotional energy. However, in general, it's better to at least establish clear boundaries, maintain professional distance, and document all interactions clearly.
Yeah.
You can't always have a witness. Sometimes it's private meetings, but at least follow up then with an email to confirm decisions and make sure that you understand, to have a kind of a paper trail. It's also important to seek organizational support, to engage HR and utilize EAP programs. But perhaps the best thing is to make yourself more resilient, to really prioritize self-care and to stay objective, to evaluate your performance clearly and keep on focusing on facts rather than emotions. There's a huge onus on organizations and especially also boards in the terms
Yes.
of who they appoint in key leadership positions to stay away from the concentration of power in one person and really to detect this dark traits early and to make sure that people are kept accountable.
Prof. Skuman, if you're the leader listening to this conversation right now and you're saying, I need to take responsibility here, I need to reflect on the person that I am, and I might need to change. That sounds in a perfect world what we want to see, but how open are people to change? And are people who have these kind of personality traits willing to make the change to be better versions of themselves?
Often, if we look at the positives, so people that are self-aware, the leaders that are self-aware, that recognize some of these traits, are usually willing to engage in coaching or professional guidance to help to soften their traits, and to work with emotional intelligence and not, to develop empathy and not be cruel. However, people that's full-blown disorders, if we can talk a personality disorder, they are less likely to engage and less willing to engage. It's usually their partners or the employees that come for professional support. But if an organization or a board or other senior leaders in the organization can take responsibility and almost make it a requirement for this person to engage in some kind of coaching or professional guidance, and they understand the consequences if not so. Once again, if they are kept accountable, then we can work. I think the main thing is if you are prepared to reflect and to prepare to take responsibility for yourself, then there is the possibility of growth.
Yeah, and you'd imagine a true leader, somebody who really is going to excel at the top of the pile on that organogram. I mean, these are the people that are saying, I want to stay teachable. I want to be a better version of myself. And organizations are hopefully supporting those people to be able to do exactly that.
Yes, we would really hope so. And I think there are organizations that do it very well in terms of how they appoint people with psychometric screening, people that implement 360 feedback, companies that have clear transparency, open door policies, and dilute power, and which emphasize fairness, and also or support employee well-being in the process. And as I mentioned, once again, the accountability, and that's a huge problem that we face in South Africa,
Yeah.
is the lack of accountability and the lack of consequences for the dark leaders.
Yeah, I mean, who are they accountable to at the end of the day? I mean, if they are sitting there as the leader, who are they accountable to, and who can step in and actually point that out to them? I suppose that accountability then comes from leadership and trusting others to be able to share. I mean, that in itself is a challenge.
Yes, people are often scared, and often these people can also be the people that you report to. So it makes it difficult. And I think that's why it's so important to have sometimes that support system out of the organization. As I mentioned, just your social support to keep you grounded, but also the professional support in terms of how to equip yourself and safeguard yourself to manage this better, even if it means just developing a thicker skin. Call out the behavior, but in a way that that it's still safe for you.
You talk about thicker skin. I just want to quickly touch as we wrap this up this morning, Renata, on employee wellness. I mean, if you're in a space and it starts to feel toxic, I mean, what do you do? Is it a place where you're saying, I'm not going to try and fix this, I'm just going to leave? I mean, is there something in place, any organism in place within companies to deal with that kind of a toxic leadership or toxic work environment? Or is it best to just walk out and try and hope the grass is greener on the other side?
No, I think there's many organizations where toxic leadership was addressed and leadership was changed for the benefit of the organization. So just leaving is definitely never the first option. However, it does happen that in therapy, when we work with individuals, we sometimes do advise, this is not going to change. We've done now X, Y, and Z and then leave. But again, it depends how you manage the process and if you've kept the paper trail, because you might even have a case for a constructive dismissal then with the CCMA. So
Yes.
there's various routes that can be followed. I think short term, it's always the best just to make sure that you are resilient, that you take care of yourself and get this support, because Remember, work is a crucial part of your life, but work is not everything in your life. And we shouldn't be so busy building a career that we forget that we are all still busy building lives.
Yeah, we forget. You're absolutely right. You don't want to just suffer in silence just for that paycheck. There's certainly more to life than that, as much as work is important. Thank you for this eye-opening conversation. And if you're listening right now, maybe it's also a time to say, I feel like this could be me, and maybe I need to start reaching out for help. Maybe I need to get the help that I need so I can be the best version of myself. With massive thanks to you, Professor Renata Skuman, Head of Healthcare Leadership at Stellenbosch Business School. Thanks for your time. Love your expertise. What a great story. Until we connect again.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Renata. That makes us think just a little bit.